I'm Danielle, 29, and what happened at my brother's wedding changed the way I look at love, family, and trust forever. If you've ever found yourself smiling through a moment only to later realize it was the beginning of a storm, yeah, buckle in. The wedding took place in Asheville, North Carolina, in a rustic estate nestled deep in the Blue Ridge Mountains. My brother, Evan, had always been the golden boy, charming, driven, and effortlessly loved by everyone. His fiancée, Naomi, was no exception. Everyone adored her from the moment she walked into our lives. Blonde, bright-eyed, and poised like she was born to be on the cover of a bridal magazine. Their engagement was quick, barely 8 months. But love moves fast, right? I flew in from Chicago with my boyfriend, Jordan. We've been together for 3 years. I'll be honest, I wasn't Naomi's biggest fan at first. It wasn't that she was rude or fake. No, she was the opposite, too perfect. The kind of woman who remembers your dog's name after meeting them once and always knows exactly how much to compliment someone without it feeling overdone. I try to shake it off as me just being protective of Evan. We arrived on Thursday. The main house was gorgeous, straight out of a luxury wedding catalog. Think exposed beams, wildflower arrangements in mason jars, and candlelit dinners under string lights. Naomi's family was already there. Her father, Richard, a tall man with a kind of handshake that says, "I've closed a lot of deals," and her younger sister, Elise, who looked like she belonged on a runway. I didn't see her fiancé that night, but she mentioned he was flying in the next morning from New York. Friday morning, at breakfast, I finally met him, Daniel. Yes, Daniel and Danielle. Cute, I know. He was tall, good-looking, in that owns a vineyard in Italy kind of way. He looked like he belonged in Naomi's world. Confident but understated, with that effortless charm you only find in men who aren't trying too hard. I expected a shallow finance bro, but Daniel surprised me. His first words to me were, "So you're the sister who got away from North Carolina. Tell me, are the winters in Chicago as brutal as they say?" I laughed, and just like that, we clicked. Now here's where things get weird. During the welcome dinner, Naomi gave a short toast. She was glowing, thanking our family for embracing her and talking about how blessed she was to be marrying Evan. But as she was speaking, Daniel leaned over to me and whispered, "You ever get the sense someone's reading from a script they didn't write?" I blinked at him, confused. He smiled and raised his glass, like it was nothing. I shrugged it off. Maybe he was joking. Or maybe he'd just seen too many Netflix thrillers. The rehearsal day was smooth. Naomi had everything down to the second. Even the flower girl had a cue sheet. But during the afternoon break, I caught Naomi alone, pacing behind the stables, whispering into her phone. "I don't care what he thinks, he's not going to ruin this." Her voice was sharp, nothing like the syrupy sweet tone she'd used just 10 minutes ago with Evan's grandma. When she saw me, her expression shifted instantly. "Hey, just finalizing details with a caterer," she said, slipping the phone behind her back like a kid hiding a stolen cookie. "Cool," I replied, but I felt the first crack in the perfect glass. Later that night, Jordan and I sat outside on the porch, sipping wine. "You ever think Naomi's a little polished?" I asked him. He raised an eyebrow. "Like, she practices smiling in the mirror?" "Exactly." I laughed, relieved he didn't think I was just being petty. Saturday morning was wedding day. Blue skies. No rain. The estate buzzed with activity. Naomi, in her bridal suite, looked like a painting. Evan, meanwhile, was nervous but beaming. My mom and dad couldn't stop smiling. Everything seemed perfect. Then brunch happened.
It was post-ceremony.
The guests were eating waffles and sipping mimosas. My parents were at a table with Naomi's family, laughing like old friends. Evan and Naomi were walking hand in hand, greeting guests. I was catching up with an old cousin when I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Daniel. He looked serious. "Can we talk?" he asked. I stepped aside with him toward the edge of the lawn, by the big oak tree that shaded half the garden. "Everything okay?" "I know this is weird," he began, "but I think you should know something. Your parents, they're being played." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" He ran a hand through his hair, eyes scanning the party like he was watching for someone. Not here. But what I'm about to say, it's not speculation. It's not a theory. I have proof. Of what? I demanded. Daniel looked me dead in the eye. Naomi isn't who she says she is. And your parents, especially your father, they're the real targets. Your brother is just a means to an end. I froze. Are you serious right now? He nodded, dead serious. But before I explain, I need you to answer one question. What? Daniel's voice dropped to a whisper. You're the judge, Danielle. Are you ready to believe what you see, or what you want to see? I stared at him, the laughter of my parents ringing in the background, Evan's voice echoing from the porch as he made a toast, Naomi's perfect smile lighting up the garden, and suddenly, I wasn't sure what was real anymore. I don't know what I expected Daniel to say next. Maybe that Naomi had a secret ex-husband or a gambling addiction. But what he told me wasn't scandalous in a tabloid sense. It was surgical, calculated,
Terrifying.
Naomi's real name is Alyssa Wren, he said, pulling out his phone. She changed it 6 years ago. That's around the same time she first started showing up at high-profile charity events, usually with a different identity, depending on what she was targeting. Trust funds, inheritance, investment portfolios. He showed me a photo. Same woman. Naomi's face. Different hair color. Different name.
Wait.
How do you even have this? I asked, backing away slightly. I'm not some conspiracy nut, he said, holding his hands up. I'm a forensic analyst for a private investigative firm in New York. We track corporate fraud, embezzlement, identity scams. Naomi, or Alyssa, or whoever she is, was flagged in one of our internal alerts when she started showing up in bank records connected to shell corporations. You're telling me this at my brother's wedding? I didn't come here to blow anything up, he said, his voice steady. I came because I recognized her in a client file 6 months ago. Then, 2 weeks ago, one of our monitoring programs pinged me, her name, linked to your father's investment firm. I did some digging. Then Elise, her sister, invited me here, thinking I'd be impressed by the glitz and the family connections. I was dizzy. I couldn't process this. You could be wrong, I said, but it came out weak. I'd love to be wrong, he replied. But this woman has been doing this for a while. And your dad? He's the perfect mark, successful, influential, but personable. He builds trust quickly. People like Naomi know how to exploit that. A million questions swirled in my head. So, what? She marries Evan and then what? Gets access to Dad's money? Not directly, Daniel said. But marriage gives her a seat at the family table. She gets into conversations, boardrooms, maybe even accounts if she plays her cards right. It's long-game fraud. She's patient. She doesn't need your brother's bank account. She wants your father's legacy. Just then, laughter broke out from the nearby brunch tables. I turned and saw my parents, mid-toast with Naomi's father. Their faces were lit up with joy. I had to sit down. Daniel stayed quiet as I stared blankly at the garden. Finally, I whispered, I need proof. Something I can show my brother. My parents. I have it, he said. But we need somewhere private. I can't risk Naomi, or whoever she really is, seeing me hand over the files. We agreed to meet later that afternoon in my room. I didn't know if I believed him yet, but I knew enough to feel sick. Back at brunch, I sat beside Evan. He was radiant, smiling at everyone, totally oblivious to the storm brewing. You okay? He asked, noticing my silence. Yeah, just tired, I said. The mimosas are hitting harder than I thought. Naomi rejoined us then, sliding her hand into Evan's. What are we whispering about? She asked with a perfect smile. Her eyes flicked to me, just a split second too long. I smiled back, as convincingly as I could. Hangovers, I said. The glamorous side of weddings. She laughed. Amen to that. But something in her expression shifted, barely perceptible. She knew, or at least suspected. Later that afternoon, Daniel came to my room. Jordan was out exploring the trails, so we had privacy. Daniel opened his laptop and pulled up a series of files. These are offshore accounts connected to shell companies Naomi has ties to. All of them have similar behavioral fingerprints. Money moving in right after a wedding, slowly siphoned out to other identities, then total radio silence. He clicked again. Here's a photo from 3 years ago. Charity Gala in Boston. That's her. Same woman. Back then, her name was Isabel Hart. Her husband, a young biotech CEO, lost $2 million in an investment scam 6 months after they married. She vanished. The case was quietly settled. No charges filed. My mouth was dry. Now here, he said, opening an audio file. This one's recent. Surveillance recording from a downtown Manhattan cafe. You'll hear her voice. I listened. Clear as day, Naomi's voice. If I get in, I can influence the portfolio from the inside. The daughter won't be a problem. She's got a boyfriend who's easy to manipulate. I froze. That's me, I whispered. Daniel nodded. That's how deep this goes. She's been studying your whole family. You, Jordan, your parents, everyone. That bracelet she gave your mom yesterday?
Bugged.
We found a matching device on a previous target. I stood abruptly. We have to tell Evan.
Now.
Daniel placed a hand gently on my arm.
No.
Not yet. She'll deny everything. She'll spin it. We need more. Bank access logs, email trails, confirmation that she's already breached your father's firm. Otherwise, she could walk away clean. My hands were shaking. Then what do?
We bait her, Daniel said.
Create a situation where she makes a move, something traceable, something we can prove. Tonight, at the reception. I didn't like it. I didn't like any of it. But I nodded. That night, the reception was magical, fairy lights, a live band, and dancing under the stars. Naomi wore a second gown, even more beautiful than the first. Evan was smitten. My parents beamed with pride. But I was watching her every move. Midway through the night, she stepped away from the dance floor, claiming she needed to freshen up. I followed, quietly, at a distance. She didn't go to the restroom. She went into the estate study, locked the door behind her. I waited, counting the seconds. After 3 minutes, Daniel appeared beside me. She's in there, I whispered. What now? We let her do what she came to do, he said. And we get it all on record. From his bag, he pulled out a small device, an audio receiver synced to the study's hidden surveillance system. Within seconds, her voice filled our ears. Yes, I'm in. His desktop is logged in already.
He's too trusting. Idiot.
Uploading the portfolio access now. Daniel hit record. We had her. I stood there, frozen, hearing Naomi, no, Alyssa or Isabel, or whoever she really was, speak with such cold calculation made my skin crawl. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't stress or some twisted miscommunication. She was exactly what Daniel said she was. A con artist. And she was stealing from my father while dancing in my brother's arms just hours earlier. Let's go, I whispered. We've got enough. Not yet, Daniel said, his eyes locked on the receiver screen. She's still talking. The more she says, the stronger the case. The line crackled. Richard's got the Cayman's account ready. I'll send over the portfolio data tonight. Say it's a joint venture opportunity. He'll bite. Already talked up some sustainable energy nonsense over brunch. The guy wants to leave the legacy.
Easy ego target.
I covered my mouth to keep from gasping.
She was talking about my dad.
Our dad. A man who had built everything he had from scratch, who still drove a 10-year-old car because he believed in earning things, not flaunting them.
She saw him as a mark.
A gullible legacy builder. Daniel hit a key on his laptop, saving the recording. Now we go, he said. We stepped back from the door just in time for it to open. Naomi emerged, phone in hand, not noticing us at first. Then she saw Daniel. And froze. Oh, she said, voice neutral. Didn't realize anyone was in here. Just grabbing some air, Daniel said, smiling with perfect ease. Beautiful night, huh? Her eyes narrowed slightly, but only for a second. Then she smiled. It is. I was just checking on the caterer invoice. Always something. Of course, I said, doing my best impression of casual. She lingered for half a beat too long, like she wanted to gauge whether we'd heard anything. But then she walked past us, disappearing back into the crowd. Daniel waited until she was fully gone before turning to me. Tomorrow morning, we go to your parents. Then Evan. We show them everything. Why not now? I hissed. Because tonight, she's still riding the wave of goodwill. They're in love with illusion. Let them wake up, sober, and then we drop the truth. I hated it. I hated playing the long game. But he was right. We returned to the reception like nothing had happened. I found Jordan and clung to him like a lifeline. He noticed something was off but didn't press. Later that night, in our room, I told him everything. "You're serious?" he asked, stunned. "Naomi's a scammer?" "Worse than that," I said. "She's a professional predator." Jordan leaned back, hands on his face. "Jesus. Evan, I know." We barely slept. Every hour dragged by as I imagined Naomi slipping into my dad's financial life, pulling strings, inserting lies. I kept picturing her toasting my mom, laughing with my cousins, talking about honeymoon plans with Evan, as if it all meant something, as if any of it was real. By morning, I couldn't take it anymore. "Now," I told Daniel, storming into the dining room where my parents were sipping coffee, sunlight pouring in through the window. They looked up, surprised to see me and Daniel together. "Morning," Mom said, her smile faltering slightly at my expression. "Sit down," I said, heart hammering. "You need to hear something." Within minutes, we had them hooked up to Daniel's laptop. We played the recording. Naomi's voice filled the room, clear and sharp, talking about uploading portfolio data, mocking my father's ego, coordinating with someone named Richard. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad sat very still, his coffee cooling in front of him. When it ended, no one spoke for a long moment. Finally, Dad said, "That was her. That's her voice." I nodded. "Who is she?" Mom asked. "How do you know all this?" Daniel took over. "She's operated under at least 4 names. Always the same MO. She gets close to a family with wealth, usually through marriage or engagement. Gains access to private accounts, proprietary data, investment opportunities. Then she disappears. The people pretending to be her family? They're hired accomplices. Paid actors." Dad's hands clenched. "She's in my system. I gave her access." "She doesn't know you know," Daniel said. "You can stop this. Today." We spent the next hour locking down accounts, calling in IT staff, and notifying legal counsel. Daniel had already contacted a federal investigator he trusted.
They were on standby.
My father's firm, known for its discretion, agreed to fast-track an internal breach protocol. Naomi hadn't stolen anything yet, but she had tried. And that was enough. Next came Evan. We found him walking by the lake behind the estate, just after breakfast.
"Hey," I said.
"Got a minute?" He turned, smiling, but it faded quickly when he saw our faces. "What's going on?" I told him everything. Daniel backed it up with files, photos, recordings. We showed him surveillance stills of Naomi at previous weddings, court documents with her other names, financial records linking her to shell accounts. At first, Evan laughed, short, disbelieving. "Okay, this is a joke, right? You're pranking me." "Very funny." "It's not a joke," I said softly. He fell silent. The smile vanished. Slowly, painfully, I watched the truth seep in. "No," he said, shaking his head. "No, she loves me. She chose me. We talked about kids. A house in Durham. She wanted to foster dogs, Danielle."
"Dogs."
"Scammers don't plan their life around pit bulls and golden retrievers." I wanted to cry. Instead, I handed him the recording. He listened. All of it. When it ended, he sat down on the grass and buried his face in his hands. "Daniel," and I gave him space. After a while, he stood up. "We confront her."
"Now."
"No," Daniel said firmly. "We already notified authorities. Let them handle it." Evan's voice cracked. "You're telling me I have to sit here and do nothing while the woman I thought I loved is arrested at my own wedding? I grabbed his hand. You don't have to do nothing. You have to be brave. Brave enough to walk away. He didn't respond, but he nodded. We returned to the house. Minutes later, federal agents arrived in unmarked cars. They moved quickly, professionally. Naomi was taken without a scene. No screaming. No protests. Just that same perfect posture, that same unreadable smile. As if she had expected this all along. The house went still after they took her. Like someone had pulled the power from the walls and all the light had drained from the air. Naomi, Alyssa, Isabel, whatever her real name was, didn't look back as she was escorted out. No dramatic meltdown. No begging. She walked in silence, her white post-wedding dress fluttering slightly in the breeze. The same breeze that had felt magical just hours before now felt cold. Evan watched her go with his fists clenched at his sides. His face was blank, but I knew him too well. He wasn't fine. He was breaking, and holding it in like a dam threatening to burst. The guests were told there had been a medical emergency and that Naomi had been taken away for evaluation. No one pressed. Everyone assumed the bride had simply cracked from stress. It wasn't a total lie, I guess, just not the whole truth. Daniel gave his final report to my father and quietly excused himself before the scene drew more eyes. As he left, he caught my hand and gave it a squeeze. You did the right thing, he said. I couldn't have done it without you, I replied. No, he said, shaking his head gently. You saw the cracks. I just showed you the map. Then he was gone.
Just like that.
I never saw him again. The following days blurred together. Police interviews, phone calls with attorneys, hours digging through files to confirm what had been accessed and what was still safe. The FBI confirmed that Naomi had been on their radar for years. Her real name was Amanda Kessler. She was a dual citizen, American and Canadian, wanted in at least 3 countries for financial crimes and identity fraud. They called her the heiress hunter. Turns out, my family wasn't her first wedding, just the most elaborate. In California, she'd married into a software family. In Vermont, a retired publishing magnate. Every time the same, whirlwind romance, an inner circle gained, accounts infiltrated, assets skimmed, then poof. She vanished like smoke. The sad part? Most of her former victims never reported her.
Too ashamed.
Too embarrassed to admit they'd been fooled by love in a tailored dress. But we weren't letting her disappear again. My father's firm worked with federal prosecutors to build the case. With Daniel's evidence and Naomi's own recordings, they had her dead to rights. For once, she'd stayed too long. Evan didn't speak much in those days. My parents offered to send him away, to the mountains, to a friend's place in Colorado, but he refused. I need to feel this, he said. If I run from it, it'll follow me anyway. He moved back in with our parents for a while. Our mom hovered like only a Southern mother can, gentle casseroles, tea every morning, a steady stream of supportive emails from her Bible study group. Our dad, ever the stoic, mostly watched from the sidelines, offering quiet wisdom in his rare, careful words. She played us all, he admitted one night, while we sat on the porch under the humming ceiling fan. But it's not your fault. Or Evan's. Some people, they study love like it's a con. Because for them, it is. I nodded. I hadn't been able to sleep properly since the wedding. I keep thinking about the things she said to me. I told him. How she remembered my dog's name. How she asked about my dissertation, even though I'd only mentioned it once. I thought she cared. She did care, Dad said, surprising me. Not about the things that matter, but about the things she needed to know. Caring, for her, was a tool. That's what makes people like her dangerous. He was right. That was what had made her so convincing. Naomi didn't lie like a liar. She lied like a mirror. Weeks passed. Then months. The legal case moved forward, slowly but surely. Amanda was denied bail, deemed a flight risk. The man who posed as her father, Richard, was found in Belize. The authorities were working on extradition. Others in her family circle had gone to ground. The FBI believed it was part of a loosely organized fraud ring. Amanda was just one of their most successful players. Evan began to emerge from the fog. It started small, returning texts, joining family dinners, going for long walks with our dad. He started therapy, spoke with other victims of long con scams. Slowly, the guilt began to loosen its grip. And he never once said, "I should have known." Not after the first week. Because he shouldn't have known. She was that good. 6 months after the wedding, we gathered again. Not for anything fancy. Just a quiet evening at home. Barbecue on the grill, soft music playing. Evan sat next to me, a fresh haircut, wearing a t-shirt with actual color in it for the first time in weeks. "You know," he said, "it still feels fake sometimes. Like maybe I dreamed her. Or maybe I was the fake one all along." I reached over and took his hand. "You were real. She wasn't. That's the difference." He nodded. Then, after a long pause, "I think I'm ready to let it go. Not forget it, but not let it be the last thing that defines me." My eyes stung. I just nodded. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about Daniel's words. "You're the judge." He was right. In the end, we all have to decide what we believe, what's real, what's performance, what's worth fighting for. Naomi, or Amanda, played a perfect game. But she underestimated one thing: family. Because for all her tactics and schemes, she forgot something important. Real families talk. Real families compare stories. Real families feel when something's off, even if it takes time to recognize it. She used connection to con us. But it was connection that saved us. Evan eventually met someone new. Slowly. Carefully.
He took it slow this time.
Her name is Leah. She's nothing like Naomi. Doesn't light up a room. Doesn't charm entire crowds. But she laughs with her whole body, talks too loud when she's nervous, and has a messy, warm way about her that makes Evan relax like I haven't seen in years. He introduced her to us over a casual lunch one Sunday. "This is Leah," he said, then looked at her with that same softness he once had for Naomi, but this time, quieter.
Safer.
My parents smiled. My mom cried just a little. Later, when I was helping clear dishes, Evan pulled me aside. "You know what Leah said to me the other day?" he asked. "What?" She said, "I don't want to be your dream girl. I just want to be real." I smiled. "That sounds perfect." He nodded. "This time, I'm not ignoring the cracks. I'm embracing them." That's when I knew we'd made it through. And for anyone out there who's ever had that gut feeling, the kind that nags at you during a smile or pricks your skin during laughter, don't ignore it. It's not paranoia. It's protection. Because sometimes at a wedding, everyone's laughing and someone's already picking the locks to your life. And when someone leans in and says, "You're the judge, listen," then judge well.